everyone, Joshua Hanlon here, and today I'm in Evansville, Indiana with Dan Siskin from Brickmania, and we are going to take a look at the USS Missouri Battleship here. Now, longtime viewers of Beyond the Brick will remember that we covered this way back when Dan was first starting work on this.
This is a 25.5-foot model of the USS Missouri. It's built in 1/35th scale, a common scale I build in. I do a lot of military modeling. It's 3 months into the project.
And then have given some updates over the years, so we wanted to give kind of a final update here because I think it's about as finished as it's ever going to get, right, Dan?
Right. It's probably had higher states of being finished, but every time we travel, some parts fall off and needs a little bit of repairs, and this is sort of the state that it's probably going to be in for the rest of the duration, unless we can get it permanently installed somewhere and I don't have to keep repairing it. So.
Sounds good. Well, then, if you want to take us through the ship here and kind of how it's set up right now.
Sure. Well, right now, I mean, on this side of it, you'll notice everybody's in their dress white uniforms. So it's set up exactly how the ship was in September 2nd, 1945, when the Japanese government representatives came aboard and signed basically the instrument of surrender in Tokyo Bay, ending World War II. So this is the way the ship was, and they all had. If you look at pictures, they were all the sailors were wearing. They call them undressed white uniforms, and then they had all the brass. So you have all these officers down here. They are like basically representatives of all the Allied powers. You have all the admirals and generals involved. So MacArthur was there, Nimitz, Halsey, basically everybody who had a hand in the defeat of the Japanese Empire was aboard the ship that day.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Fantastic. So that's a ton of minifigs then. So what else do we have in the ship here?
Sure. Well, you will see this is actually turned around. Typically this is set up on the other side. You'll see the guys in the dress blues, or the blue dungarees. This is like an actual work uniform with their like life jackets on. This is how the other side of the ship would be, on display. So the other side, you'll see how it was when they were in a combat situation. So we have all these guys. Brick Arms actually made us some special shells for. That we can put in our anti-aircraft guns, which actually are now just coming out to be available to the public. So it's kind of neat that some of the things that we have on the ship are actually prototypes for things that are products that have turned into reality because of it. So.
And you've got some lighting in here as well. Where all does that run through?
Right. We did, thanks to Rob from Brick Stuff. He set us up with a bunch of lights to really make the ship pop. We've had a couple of short circuit issues, so you see some of the wires outside. Usually that's tucked inside of everything. I will actually, next time this is in our shop, I will rewire the whole ship just because it it looks a little schleppy with all the wires showing. But typically that's not the way it is. But it's all the running lights. You have the searchlights lit up, running lights. I want to do more, but like I said, it's just always a matter of having enough time to do it when it's the few times it is in the shop, because this is a big undertaking. Just setting this up to work on it in our shop, it takes about 45 minutes. Unpacking it from its boxes, setting it up. I mean, we can travel around with it and get it set up with a crew of people, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I imagine it's a very large build. Now, one piece that you see a ton of on here are tiles, and I think in this current iteration, you've tiled like the entire deck now.
Yeah, there's not a spot on here. And there's a few places here and there where you'll see studs showing, and that's because it's not finished. So like the backs of the turrets, you'll still see the stud showings, but that's not really, people don't really notice it because it just blends in so well.
So was it difficult to source that many gray tiles for a build of this size? I mean, I know Brickmania is a big company. You've got a lot of builds you're doing, but still, that's a lot of pieces.
Yeah, there's probably 150,000 tiles on this ship, or maybe more, maybe like 200,000 tiles, just tiles. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of going to pick a brick. It's a lot of Bricklink orders, and it's just. It's not something that just happened overnight. There was like a year and a half of planning that went into this before I even started putting the bricks together. So, and believe it or not, we're actually getting ready to do our next big mega build too. So,
wow!
So you heard it here first.
There you go. Brickmania will have another massive ship touring around.
It will be. It'll be just as big as this one. So.
Okay. We'll look forward to that. So then you've got down here's an example of one of the kind of bigger turrets on the ship. So talk about kind of the design of this and how that fits in.
Well, obviously the turrets on one of these ships are just massive. This is like the size of a house, and it's built. I'll pull the top off. You can see how it's built inside. I had high hopes that I would actually one day be able to motorize all these guns, and I probably still can if I come up with the time. But you can see that it's hollow in there, and these guns would actually be able to depress into the turrets just like a real ship. Someday I'll get around to doing it, and it is built to travel. So we take these turrets off, and it just comes off. There's gravity holding it on, just like the real ship. See if I can get it back on in one piece. That's always a trick. Yeah.
It takes a special skill to get the turret back
There you
on.
go. But then the guns just pop right off. So it's designed to travel. So
Yeah, so that's you obviously had travel in mind when you were designing this.
yeah, well, every section, I learned the hard way that you cannot build anything wider than a door. So I've actually I had these giant castles that I used to build, and one day I moved, and I was like, oh, how do I get it out of the house? So now, having learned that's not a good idea to build wider than 30 inches, it's built in sections, it's 30-inch slices. It can go through any size, standard size door.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Makes a lot of sense then. So do you have any idea how many different shows this has been to over the last several years as you've toured around?
you know, it's really hard to judge. It's at least 100 different
Wow.
locations. Yeah. There was a year. I mean, this year this has only traveled to like maybe 5 events this year. In previous years, it's been like 30. You know, the year before 30. So maybe not 100. Maybe like, but still definitely over 50 for sure.
Yeah. So has it traveled outside the U.S. or is taking it kind of overseas or anything ever a possibility in your mind for something this size?
It could go anywhere. It's just a matter of cost, you know. It's been for the 4 corners of the U.S. I mean, it's for sure. It's been to California, it's been to Florida, New England, Seattle, you know, everywhere in between, you know, pretty much. So.
Yeah, well, that's massively impressive. So then, what is the exact? You've mentioned a couple times how setup is a really big deal with this. So when you bring this to show, what exactly is that like? What's kind of the process like for that?
Well, we have to. I'll just show you how the sections come apart here. So this is you're looking at one section. It just slides apart, and we can pull the different sections apart. So you can see 30 inches. It's actually built to withstand just you being able to pick it up and kind of manhandle it. Well, except the figures, but it's definitely built for strength. You could stand on this without any problem whatsoever. So you have all these sections. It's actually resting on its crates. So below this custom drop that we had made for it, there's 10 packing crates, and those crates become it's a stand when we're parked, on display. But when we're not on display, it packs up inside the base.
And I'm sure a lot of that support comes from the inside structure there. So what's that like with the kind of columns and things that keep this up?
It's a Technic. Here, I'll actually pull this turret off again, and you'll be able to see that it's Technic beams throughout.
Okay.
So up top and bottom, it's a grid. Basically, it's like 2 pancakes. The deck is the top one pancake. The bottom is another pancake with bricks built up in between it, locked together with Technic beams. So it cannot. You can pick it up from the top, and the bottom will not drop out. And the whole ship is made that way. You can pick up the bigger pieces from the top, and the bottom will not fall off.
So you've done a number of these large scale builds like this. Then is that something you would recommend to other people if they're looking to build kind of on this scale? Is that type of structure works really
Sure.
well?
This is my 3rd big mega ship, kind of behind the Nicholas behind us here, being my 2nd. That one has traveled a lot too, but it doesn't travel nearly as well. So a lot of lessons learned on previous builds to went into building this one.
And then what are the plans for this? So I know we talked about how you've had this at a bunch of shows. Is it still planning to be touring in future years, or what's that going to be like?
Well, we've kind of decided, me being on the road and even Brickmania's crew on the road, it's really hard on us, and it's hard on the models. It's hard on our staff because this is not our primary business. We love to display our models, but ultimately we need to be back in our toy factory building toys for our kits. So we think what we want to do is park this thing permanently, if not 100% permanent, at least have a normal home where people can come and see it. That would be in our warehouse in Minneapolis, where we used to have our old warehouse, which we still use, is primarily where we construct all of our kits. So now what we want to do is get another space, because that's completely full. We have 30 workers back in Minneapolis, and they completely fill our warehouse. So we're going to get another warehouse that we can put this in, be open to the public 7 days a week. So.
That would be fantastic, so people can come by and check it out in all its glory here.
And then the next ship. So the space that we're looking at has room for 2 of these easily. So it'd be open 7 days a week, and people always come by Minneapolis, and they're kind of like, I want to see your warehouse, but you're not open to the public, and all we can send them to is our store at the Mall of America, which is tiny and doesn't have much on display. And when we have these huge, beautiful models, we'd like to get the public to see them. So,
Has there been any talk about taking this to the actual Battleship Missouri for a display ever?
well, we've been approached by some of the other ships in the class
Okay.
about bringing it to their events. I think Hawaii might just be a little far, because that's where the real Missouri is. Obviously, if somebody's willing to pay for it, we would bring it wherever. And we have brought it to different shows on request. We've done video game conventions, we've done things like that, but Typically speaking, most of those things are museums or nonprofits, and they don't have a whole lot of money to throw around for displays.
Yeah.
So, and it's me. We basically Brickmania is a small company. I don't have a lot of money to say, hey, I want to show up and put this on display. So.
No, that makes sense. Well, I'm glad you were able to bring it out here with a bunch of your other builds. Very nice display area here, and it's nice to get it out in public at least once more before it kind of parks itself a bit in the warehouse.
Yeah, well, and when I say warehouse, it's kind of a misnomer because it'll be more of a museum setting like this. That we really appreciate being invited into a museum that has lights and nice facilities. Whereas sometimes at Lego conventions, it's not necessarily in the best viewing location.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'm glad you could bring it out. Thanks again for setting the whole thing up here and getting the lights on and everything and taking us through the ship. Appreciate it, Dan.
Yeah, thanks for speaking with me again. Appreciate it. There you go. That's how you build. It's all Lego. It's nothing but Lego.